Warmest greetings to all my incredible subscribers and new viewers alike. Greetings, viewers. Get ready to immerse yourself in the world of Russian invasion of Manchuria in this video. The Russian invasion of Manchuria or Chinese expedition occurred in the aftermath of the First Sino-Japanese War when concerns regarding Qing China's defeat by the Empire of Japan and Japan's brief occupation of Liaodong caused the Russian Empire to speed up their long-held designs for imperial expansion across Eurasia. In the 5 years preceding the invasion, the Russian Empire established a network of leased territories in Manchuria. This began with the Triple Intervention in 1895. From 1898, after which Russia received Liaotung from Japan, it built and operated the Chinese Eastern Railway (CER). As with all other major powers in China, Russia demanded concessions along with the railroad, enforced through unequal treaties. With the building of a southern branch of the CER, later the South Manchuria Railway, Mukden, now known as Shenyang, became a Russian stronghold. During the Boxer Rebellion, the Russian military temporarily evacuated from and immediately reoccupied Mukden. The Russian Empire's full invasion of Manchuria occurred concurrent with its participation against the Boxer Rebellion. The pretext of the invasion was the defense of the railroad against Boxer rebels. Russia became involved in the Eight-Nation Alliance due to its presence in the foreign legations. Russian Cossacks formed part of the relief forces during the Seymour and Garcelli expeditions, while Russian forces were also present inside the legations during the sieges in Beijing and Tianjin. These forces operated separately from those involved in the invasion of Manchuria, with the entire Manchuria operation exclusively directed by Russians. The invasion concluded with the full occupation of Manchuria by Russia, causing tensions that led to the Russo-Japanese War. Get ready to immerse yourself in the world of campaign as we examine its impact and relevance. The Russians invaded Manchuria during the rebellion, which was defended by Manchu bannermen. The bannermen were annihilated as they fought to the death against the Russians, each falling one at a time against a five-pronged Russian invasion. The Russian anthropologist Sergei Mikhailovich Shirokogorov reported that the Russians killed many of the Manchus, thousands of them fled south. The Cossacks looted their villages and property and then burnt them down. Manchuria was completely occupied after the fierce fighting that occurred. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of Boxer's attacks on Chinese Eastern Railway and explore its various aspects. The Boxers' attacks on the Chinese Eastern Railway during the Boxer Rebellion took place in 1900. In response, Russia invaded Manchuria. Chinese imperial troops engaged in attacks against Russians. In one incident, Chinese troops killed a Cossack. Another 15 Russian casualties occurred when Chinese cavalry attacked the Russians. The Boxers destroyed railways and cut lines for telegraphs. The Yinka coal mines were burned by Chinese forces. The Chinese used arson to destroy a bridge carrying a railway and a barracks in the 27th of July. The Boxers destroyed railways in Manchuria in a strategic maneuver to halt enemy soldiers from moving. Imperial edicts were posted which called for attacks against the Russians. The stations of the South Manchuria Railway came under Boxer control. With the building of the South Manchuria Railway, Mukden became a Russian stronghold, which occupied it after the Boxer Rebellion. After Russia invaded with regular troops, the railway came under Russian control again. Moving ahead, let's uncover the hidden gems within defense of Yinka and discover their significance. The Battle of Yinka was a battle where Chinese forces battled against the invading Russian army in the Boxer Rebellion. Unlike the battles in China proper during the Boxer Rebellion, battles between Chinese and foreigners in Manchuria were exclusively between Chinese and Russians. The Russians were the sole force attacking Yinka, at the time one of the main seaports of Manchuria. Yinka was divided into a foreign settlement and a Chinese city. Mishenko had to engage his reserved troops to win the fight. When the Russians seized the city, a number of Boxers and Chinese imperial troops managed to pull off an evacuation. A combination of a moat, precipitation, and mud hampered the movement of Russian troops and their guns. With the foundation laid, Let's embark on a journey into Battle of Po Xiao. The Battle of Po Xiao Pinyin, Beitizi was an engagement during the Boxer Rebellion between regular Chinese imperial forces and an outpost of Russian infantry located in Chinese territory. Even before the Boxer rising against foreign influence, an outpost of Russian troops had been located across the Chinese border near the village of Po Xiao, which lay close to Liaodong. It was garrisoned by 204 Russian troops under Colonel Mishenko. When hostilities began, the Chinese authorities advanced a guarantee of safe passage in exchange for his retreat to the south of Liaodong. This was declined, and instead Mishenko called for more Russian troops to reinforce his position. Before the Russian position could be reinforced, fighting broke out. During the opening stages of the ensuing battle, Chinese guns bombarded the Russian right and front flanks, resulting in 14 Russian deaths and 5 wounded. Firing from long range at high trajectories, the Chinese artillery hit their marks, but at closer range proved inaccurate. Chinese regular infantry armed with rifles advanced, crawling under cover artillery fire towards the Russian defense perimeter of about 350 square feet. When the Russian fire slackened, the Chinese troops renewed their attack. Chinese forces alternated between advance and retreat until the Russian position was overrun. Losses on both sides are uncertain, but the Russian detachment may have been wiped out. The spotlight now falls on battles on the Ama River as we delve deeper into its details. The battles on the Ama River were border clashes between Chinese Imperial Army troops along with Boxers against Russian forces who aimed for control over the Ama River for navigation. The Chinese summoned all available men to fight, and the Chinese forces and garrisons gathered artillery and bombarded Russian troops and towns across the Ama. Despite the Cossacks repulsing Chinese army crossings into Russia, the Chinese army troops increased the amount of artillery and kept up the bombardment. In revenge for the attacks on Chinese villages, Boxer troops burned Russian towns and almost annihilated a Russian force at Teeling. Russian Governor Kelvin North Gribsky ordered Cossacks to destroy all Chinese posts on Ama River, and Cossacks completed the order during July. On July 20, Russian forces, including 16 infantry companies, 100 Cossacks and 16 cannons, crossed the Ama near Blagoveshchensk with support from the steamers Selenga and Sungari. On July 20, Russian troops captured Sagalian. On July 22, Agan. After the victory over the Chinese forces, the general governor of Ama region, Nikolai Grodikov, decided to annex the right bank of the Ama River and sent a telegram to St. Petersburg, but Russian Minister of War Alexei Kuropatkin forbade such an action. Because of restoring the good relation with China in the nearest future, His Majesty decided not to annex any part of China. Let's now venture into the realm of Russian invasion of northern and central Manchuria and explore the fascinating intricacies it holds. The crushing of Boxers in northern and central Manchuria was the invasion of the 100,000-strong Russian army of Manchuria. These events form part of the period known as the Boxer Rebellion. On June 29, 1900, the first Russian Forcepo rifle regiments and some Cossacks from Khabarovsk crossed the Chinese border, followed by units from Blagoveshchensk, Nikolsk-Ussuriski, and other towns. The campaign in Manchuria was conducted by both the regular Imperial Army, including Manchu bannermen and Imperial Chinese troops, and the Boxers. The Russians invaded Manchuria during the rebellion, which was defended by Manchu bannermen. The bannermen were annihilated as they fought to the death against the Russians, each falling one at a time against a 5-pronged Russian invasion. The Russians killed many of the Manchus, thousands of them fled south. The Russian Cossacks looted some of their villages and property and then burnt them to ashes, but as revenge, the Chinese Boxers and Imperial Army came to a large Russian village and killed many civilians and looted and burnt all their houses as revenge and killed many Russian defenders. Manchuria was partially occupied after the fierce fighting that occurred. Get ready for an exciting part as we dive into aftermath. By November 1900, most of Manchuria was secured by the Russian forces. War Minister General Kuropatkin reported that Russian losses were 22 officers and 220 men killed, along with 60 officers and 23 men wounded. No records exist for Chinese losses, but estimates put them at much higher than Russian casualties. Lieutenant General Nikolai Linevich, for example, gave orders to destroy towns and execute Chinese in retaliation for attacks on the Russian railway in Manchuria. This policy was later changed and at least 8 Cossacks were executed by hanging by military court for crimes against civilians. Many Manchu bannermen supported the Boxers and shared their anti-foreign sentiment. The German minister Clemens von Ketteler was assassinated by a Manchu. Manchu bannermen had been devastated in the First Sino-Japanese War in 1895 and banner armies were destroyed while resisting the invasion. In the words of historian Pamela Crossley, their living conditions went from desperate poverty to true misery. When thousands of Manchus fled south from Agen during the fighting in 1900, their cattle and horses were stolen by Russian Cossacks who then burned their villages and homes to ashes. The clan system of the Manchus in Agen was obliterated by the despoliation of the area at the hands of the Russians. Much of the fighting in the Boxer rebellion against the foreigners in defense of Beijing and Manchuria was done by Manchu banner armies, which were destroyed while resisting the invasion. Manchu banner garrisons were annihilated on 5 roads by Russians as they suffered most of the casualties. Manchu Shofu killed himself during the Battle of Peking and the Manchu Laoshi's father was killed by Western soldiers in the battle as the Manchu banner armies of the Center Division of the Guards Army, Tiger Spirit Division and Peking Field Force in the Metropolitan banners were slaughtered by the Western soldiers. Baron von Ketteler, the German diplomat, was murdered by Captain Enhei, a Manchu from the Tiger Spirit Division of Asin Jiorozei. Prince Duan and the inner city legation quarters and Catholic Cathedral were both attacked by Manchu bannermen. Manchu bannermen were slaughtered by the Eight-Nation Alliance all over Manchuria and Beijing because most of the Manchu bannermen supported the Boxers in the Boxer Rebellion. The clan system of the Manchus in Agen was obliterated by the despoliation of the area at the hands of the Russian invaders. There were 1,266 households including 900 doors and 4,500 Manchus in 64 villages east of the river and Blagoveshchensk until the 1900 anti-Chinese pogroms committed by Russian Cossack soldiers. Many Manchu villages were burned by Cossacks in the massacre according to Viktor Zatsepin. Sergei Witt advised the Tsar to withdraw Russian forces from Manchuria, but Kuropatkin advocated for a continued Russian presence in Manchuria. The Russians tried to secure agreements favorable to themselves in exchange for withdrawal, but China refused. The Honghuzi continued to plague Manchuria despite multiple attempts aiming for their eradication and mass killings directed at them by Cossack forces. They were enlisted by the Japanese during the Russo-Japanese War to attack the Russians on their rear. Get ready for a captivating exploration as we unravel the layers of Russo-Japanese War and their profound significance. Japan was angered that Russia had not withdrawn according to the treaty it signed in the Boxer Protocol in which it promised to withdraw from Manchuria. This became an official casus belli of the Russo-Japanese War 5 years later. Stay connected and join our community by subscribing and following me on other platforms.